Hello everybody, today I'm going to be teaching you how to find the vertex form of a quadratic function. So let's start off with what is the vertex form of a quadratic function. How we write it is f of x equals a times x minus h quantity squared plus k. And why we want to be able to find this vertex form right here is so that we can find the vertex of our parabola. So the vertex is going to end up being a point h comma k. And notice in our form, our vertex form, this is x minus h squared. So if we're left with an x plus 3 squared, our x coordinate is actually going to be a negative 3. Whereas this k, we have plus k in our vertex form, so if we have a plus 7, this will be a positive 7. So let's start off by doing an example. Let's say we have the following function. G of x equals x squared minus 4x plus 7. Now there are a lot of different ways to put this in vertex form, but there's one that I feel is the easiest. All we need to do, since this has no leading coefficient of a, all we need to do is cut this 4 in half. So we know that half of 4 is 2, so I'll have x minus 2, and then we're going to square that quantity. Now the only problem with this is we'll have x squared, well, let's just think about this as x minus 2 times x minus 2. And when we distribute, we'll have our x times our x, which is our x squared, our x times our negative 2, which is negative 2x, our negative 2 times our x, which is another negative 2x, and last of all, negative 2 times 2 plus 4. So we can see this will simplify down to x squared minus 4x plus 4, which is not exactly what we started with. We want it to be equivalent to x squared minus 4x. So how we compensate for this plus 4 right here is we subtract a 4. And then last of all, we still have our plus 7. So how we're going to rewrite g of x is we're just going to simplify it down to x minus 2 quantity squared plus 3. So we know that the vertex of this function is going to lie at the point 2, 3. Because our h right here is going to be 2, and our k equals 3. So let's try another one, but this time let's have a leading coefficient. So we'll call this one h of x, and it will equal 2x squared minus 8x plus 16. So to begin with, what we want to do is we want to factor this leading coefficient 2 out of our first two terms, so the 2x squared and the negative 8. So let's look at what that will become. We'll have 2 times x squared minus 4x. And then last of all, we'll have our plus 16. Now, what we want to do is cut this negative 4 in half. We'll have 2x minus 2 quantity squared. But now, what we need to do is remember this -2 will end up being squared. Just like we know right here, our last step of -2 times 2 resulted in this 4, which we had to subtract. Now if we just put -4 right here, that would be a mistake. And the reason for that is because we have this 2 out front. So what we're going to need to do is we square the -2 and that becomes 4. But last of all, we need to multiply that by our leading coefficient of 2. So what we're actually going to subtract is an 8. And then last of all, we'll still have our plus 16. So what would the vertex of this function be? We want the vertex, and we know that h is equal to 2. So our x-coordinate is 2. And when we simplify this, we know that it equals 2x minus 2 quantity squared plus 8. So our k value is going to be 8. So that is the vertex of our h of x function. Let's try one last example. This time we'll call it j of x. And let's say that this equals -3 times -3x squared plus 9x minus 7. Alright, so just like in this problem right here, h of x, we want to factor this -3 out of our first two terms. So when we do that, we'll have -3 x squared minus 3x minus 7. The next step is to cut this 3 in half. So we'll have -3 x minus 3 halves quantity squared. And we know that 3 halves quantity squared is the same as 9/4. 9/4. And then we know that we're going to need to multiply this by our -3. So we'll have -27/4. And then what we're going to do is we have to subtract that. So since this is a negative number, we're actually going to add 27/4. And then subtract the 7. So if we want to simplify this, we need to turn 7 into another fraction that we can add. So let's multiply our 7 by 4/4, which is the same as 1. So when we do that, we'll get minus 28/4. So we'll have 27/4 minus 28/4, which is just -1/4. So our j of x in vertex form will just equal -3 times x minus 3 halves quantity squared minus 1/4. So if we want to find our vertex, it will just be 3 halves -1/4. Thank you for watching. If you would like more tutorials or more examples of this topic, please comment below or email freemathtutor@outlook.com.